Right then, so a bit of aftercare with our spray can here. We haven't used it all because it's only little bits for the cockpit area. Let's take off our little nozzle. We've got our cotton wool buds. Hopefully we've got our nail varnish remover, not the acetone free version. Right, cotton wool bud. Just quickly give it a dip into our nail blush cleaner, and then what we're going to do is just give this nozzle end, right, a nice good clean, just like so. Right, because that's where you're going to have the problem, is it building up around your nozzle end just there. Right, and then what you probably want to do is maybe just try and get in here as well also, and just maybe try and clean just inside there, but get this nozzle nicely clean, and that should help you all nice and ready for when you do some more spraying later. Right, so we're going to move to do some glue. We've got our ejector seats just here. What you want to do is, before you actually just throw some glue on and then just put it into place, just dry fit. Always dry fit absolutely everything. Just make sure everything's going where it's going. Make sure we've got no sort of gaps. I mean, you could have maybe ejector pin marks, and you might need to sort of remove them, which could like push the pieces out. You know, all sorts of things could get in the way, and you might need to do a little bit of trim, a little bit of sanding, whatever. Then we're going to come along with the glue. Well, we've got our poly cement. It's a bit of an old glue. Used to use it way back in the day. They still seem to like give it away as a freebie, probably because it's really cheap or something like that. We open this up, and what's a bit sort of old school about this is, what you do is you sort of get a bit of this and sort of kind of put it on where you're going to be gluing it, right, just like that. Then we get our piece and then we glue it together, pretty much like a lot of any kind of gluing you do in any sort of daily life, right? Put the glue on and then you basically put the piece on and have it glued together, and it does do a fairly good job of it, but you can have all sorts of potential problems. I mean, actually applying it is a bit, yeah, you know, and it's oozed out the back. You might be able to see it a bit shiny there. It's all sort of oozed out the back. You touch that with a thumb or something, you can end up getting cobwebs. It is a bit tricky. Now for your first build, I mean, it's perfectly fine to go off and use this if you want to. And you could use it for this build. However, because Tamiya extra thin cement and these types of new glues we have are actually really good, I'm going to sort of recommend it with this build, because what you do is with this stuff, it is a hell of a lot thinner. It's thinner than water. You get this nice little paintbrush applicator with it, and what you do with these is it's a different process. You actually go off, and I'll just double check my instructions. You go off and you actually sort of, let's place it in first into position, if I can just get that right, just like so. Try and sort of hold it, and then what you do is you get your Tamiya thin cement, and then you just touch any sort of side or area, right? And what happens is, although I only touch that in there, because it's so thin, it just has that capillary action to go in absolutely everywhere. I mean, that glue has probably, I can see it's just come all the way around to this side, right? And then we can maybe sort of get some more over here, Right, you could run it all the way along. Right, and then that there is nicely glued into place. And the cool thing about that is we're not getting blobs of it and then bringing it together like a sandwich and it oozes out. With this, we're bringing it together, and then the glue's so thin it just goes in and gets between two pieces of plastic, melts the two pieces of plastic together, and gives you a really strong bond. But you don't get any of that like oozing out glue like you would with, say, the poly cement, and it gets everywhere. It's just neater, tidier, and just a lot easier to use. Now, whereas this poly cement has probably come free with your kit, 10 your extra thin cement's potentially going to put you back maybe £5, depending upon where you get it from. I did get this one from Hobbycraft, and I think it was around about £5 ish. It used to be you had to go on eBay and getting it from China and stuff, but these days, you know, it seems to be a bit more readily available. So that's a decision you might want to take, depending on what your budget is at this stage. And all we're going to do is sort of go through and start, you know, getting all these pieces, you know, start gluing them together, gluing them on. We've got instrument display panels, we've got our pilot and all these other bits to sort of follow through the instructions. You know, get your spray can out, spray all your little pieces up, get it all nicely sprayed, and we can probably move along with a bit of painting and stuff in a bit. So we're going to move on with some paint brushing now, and I'm going to attempt to use Airfix's actual, you know, their free sort of pots of paint that come with this. What you want to do, you do want to sort of go out and get some paint brushes, obviously. I mean, you really don't want to be using what Airfix provides you with. I mean, I've got these ones just here. I mean, they're bristles, they're just too sort of, as you can see, they're kind of flaring out and all over the place, and they're kind of sort of tough. Really good for putting into some water and sort of mixing up your airbrush paint and stuff, but you know, we don't need that for this quite yet. What I've got here is I do have some Winsor & Newton. Now, Winsor & Newton, they are expensive, but this is their Cotman range, which is a little bit more sort of on the cheaper range. I've got this nice little set here. I think, I can't remember how much I paid for these now. They were maybe around about 10 or 15 pounds. I mean, you could still go off and go cheaper if you want, but some half decent sort of paintbrushes you want to get. It really does affect your work. When I do any sort of miniature painting, say for example, I know Games Workshop, their Citadel paintbrushes, you know, they are pretty sort of good paintbrushes, but you will notice the difference in your brush painting if you went off and get Winsor & Newton Series 7, which is basically the best paintbrushes in the world you could probably get. You really do notice the difference, although the price is a bit more. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a bit of painting. So I'm just going to take a normal sort of standard size 0, because I mean this cockpit is rather small. It's all nicely primed our white. In fact, actually it'd probably be better if we start off with our sort of fuselage section here, because what we're going to do is we're now going to sort of paint this the colour the instructions ask us to paint it, which is number 27, which is this pot here, which is nicely numbered with 27. We're going to just open this up. It's a nice sort of medium sea grey just in here. Get out your cocktail stick, nice and easy. You want to be giving these a good sort of mix. Now these are acrylic paints, they're water-based paints, so they do dry pretty sort of quickly, not very harmful, because we do used to go a lot of sort of enamel-based paints in the past, but now acrylics is all the rage. Then I'm just going to get out our just some sort of palette. Use anything. Use a kitchen tile or something like that. Just something to put your paint on. Then we're going to get out our thinners that we brought. Now this thinners, glasses cleaning spray. As I say, I think I paid like maybe £1, £1.20. Really sort of cheap stuff, but it is really good for thinning down your paints. because what's going to happen is, if I maybe show you an example of just whacking on some paint, if we just dip directly in and then just brush this on here, right, and try and paint this inside area, because it's going to be going down thick, I mean, we could sort of end up seeing brush strokes, pulled up lumps of paint, and it's not going to look smooth and feathered and all nice and everything, which is why we want to thin down our paint. So if I just clean off that brush now, as you can see, I'm using our, you know, what we got with the kit, our Humbrol Air Fix paintbrush, the really sort of horrible ones, but they are so good for just, let's just whack down a bit of this glass cleaner. Right, let's get a nice bit of our actual paint. It does mix really sort of nicely, and what you're after is just you have to sort of mix normally like a 50-50 mix of thinners to paint, but you're basically after something that is looking really nice and smooth, right? It's not looking thick, but it's not been thinned down so much that you look at it and go, I'm gonna have to put about 50 coats on this, right? So getting our, you know, pretty half decent paintbrush from Winsor and Newton, we're gonna get what's already been nicely primed white. Right, getting our paintbrush, we can dip it in. Right, I like to just sort of maybe sort of spin the paintbrush on the palette, so it's makes your paintbrush not soaked in paint and it keeps the point, and then we just basically paint this on to our model now, right? And because it's thinned down, I mean, we're not going to get absolutely brilliant coverage straight away, as you can see, but after maybe 2 or 3 coats of this paint, we should have a very nice, smooth, perfectly painted on piece going on here, right? It's going to look like you've sprayed it on because you've kept the coats really sort of thin. As you can see, the thinness of that compared to what's at the back here, yeah, you've got fantastic coverage, but you can potentially see all sorts of big sort of blobs, and it pulls up and it does all sorts of stuff that doesn't look that nice and that professional, but nicely watered down. And you know, after a couple of coats, that is going to look just as good coverage as that, but it's going to be nice smooth as if you've sprayed it on. So I'm going to just go around and paint all these base areas and do any sort of bits of detail with the paintbrush as we've got here, and then move along with this build.